You know how it goes. Car manufacturer launches supercar, reviewers love it, hate it, rate it, whatever. Then, in a couple of years' time, a convertible version of said supercar comes along, and it's pretty much identical apart from the roof has been taken off. Or at least, that's how it usually goes. But there is one manufacturer that does things a little bit differently, and guess what? They've just launched a convertible version of one of their supercars. Welcome to the McLaren Artura Spider.
Okay, but let's wind back a bit and find out what's new, because from the outside at least, it does look just like an Artura coupe with a hardtop convertible roof. However, under the skin, there's been some serious reworkings, which, by the way, have pretty much all been added to the 2025 model year coupe as well. Priced from just over £221,000, the carbon-tub Spider weighs in at 1,560 kilograms, which is 62 kilograms more than the coupe. This largely down to the additional parts for the retractable one-piece hardtop, which, by the way, has an optional electrochromic roof panel that can either brighten the cabin or block more than 99% of sunlight at the flick of a switch. In the latter setting, it also manages to block more than 96% of solar energy, therefore helping to keep the cabin as cool as possible.
So that's how it keeps you cool, but how does it keep you excited? Well, there's a new feature called spinning wheel pull-away, which basically mimics the fact that you can't just dump the clutch and floor it and the wheels spin, so McLaren has introduced a software program instead, which is very nice of them. There's also revised damper valving, and the control software that goes with it has been improved so that responses to things like a road surface change or a driver input have been sped up by 90%, so that should make a difference.
Modifications to the aero for the Spider model includes new aerothermal tech that features 4 separate ducting systems in order to cool the powertrain and reduce buffeting with the roof down. What's more, the roof shape has been designed to channel air towards the repositioned chimney in order to accelerate the flow of hot air from the powertrain. Small gurneys on the windscreen header also work to improve refinement for those in the cabin.
Another thing I want to mention, because the engineers are very proud of it, is the improved powertrain mounts. Now, that sounds a little bit boring, a bit mundane, but actually, they've stiffened it up, and that should make a big difference to how the car handles and how cohesive it feels, which should improve the excitement and just the general thrill of the car, which hopefully we'll find out later.
So, in an effort to realise the potential of the Artura, McLaren hasn't skimped on the changes. Question is, has it worked?
Well, first thing I want to tell you about is actually the engine mounts, and there's a reason for that. I mentioned them earlier about them being stiffer, but it's not just about how firm they are. It's also about how they control the powertrain, and they bring it in line with the movement of the chassis. So when you go through a corner or you go over a bump, you've got the initial movement of the chassis. That's very normal. But then there's a secondary movement of the powertrain, and that can sometimes make the car feel not quite as tight or taut, and maybe not as connected as you want. However, McLaren say that they've been able to bring the secondary movement and the initial movement together so that they're as close as possible. And that makes the car feel tauter, more cohesive, and it gives you more confidence and therefore allows you to have more fun.
The upshot of this is that the steering and direction changes of the car are far more predictable. You approach a corner, turn in, and find that you've got more confidence to carry that initial line because everything feels more cohesive.
When it comes to steering feel, we know that McLaren is typically very, very good at that. I don't think the Artura is necessarily the best of the McLaren steering feel. It feels like there's a little bit too much polish in the rack. You'd like to feel a bit more of what's going on with the road, a few more vibrations, just to give you that increased sense of engagement. But It's a really nice speed to the rack, and you can point it pretty much exactly where you want it.
Crucially, the new damper valves and revised software add not just to the agility and poise of the car when driven quickly, but also the ride comfort. Supercars tend to ride far better than you'd expect, and the Artura is a prime example. It's got superb body control, yet the ride remains supple and compliant.
I also think they've improved the feel of the brake pedal. You've still got a little bit of almost dead travel. It feels like a little bit of softness in the initial part of the pedal, which for everyday driving is probably pretty good. But then when you give it a really firm squeeze, it starts to give you some really good feel. I also know that McLaren has improved the cooling by fitting a bigger brake duct, but they're quite proud of the fact that in fitting that bigger brake duct, they haven't then interrupted the airflow that's coming away from the brakes, which can be quite a big issue because apparently brake ducts aren't the best solution when it comes to aerodynamics. There is a bit of a compromise there, but they're very happy with how they've done it, and it has improved the cooling of the brakes. Also, recalibrated ABS software, and that means that the stopping distance has been brought down to about 31 meters from 62 miles an hour, which is very short.
So, the suspension and chassis tweaks have worked a treat, but what else is new on the model year 2025 Artura? Well, if you look really closely at the cabin, you'll notice that the design has barely changed at all. But then, it didn't really need to, as the steering wheel remains a brilliant demonstration of less is more, the infotainment system is respectable for a supercar, and most importantly, the ergonomics are excellent. You'll also spot a new wireless phone charging pad that McLaren says your phone cannot slide out of, and crucially, the start button colour has been changed from red to papaya. Blind spot monitoring and cross traffic detection are now available, while road sign recognition and lane departure warning have been introduced as standard.
You know what else is standard? More power, of course. You've now got 690 brake horsepower and 531 pounds-foot of torque, and that extra 19 brake horsepower has been found entirely from the engine. None of it is from the electric motor. And I know what you're thinking, that's just a remap, that's all they've done. Well, actually, yeah, you'd be spot on. I know that because A, the engineer told me, and B, if you've got an old Artura and you want to get that extra 19 brake horsepower, all you need to do is go into your local dealership and they will do the software remap for free, depending on your region.
The electric motor might not be bringing any more power to the party, but McLaren has made the 7.4 kilowatt-hour battery a touch more efficient, now delivering 21 miles of claimed all-electric range, up from 19. And during my time with the car, I didn't experience anything to suggest that it couldn't manage this claimed figure. What's more, regardless of how fast you're going, it feels like McLaren has done an accomplished job of making the electric element work seamlessly with the internal combustion unit.
And as you can imagine, overall performance is pretty excellent. You've got 0 to 62 miles an hour in 3 seconds. You've got 0 to 124 miles an hour in about 8.4 seconds, 205 mile an hour top speed. Yeah, it's quick enough. They've also worked on the 8-speed gearbox, so there's now a pre-fill feature which pressurizes the fluid so that when you ask for a gear shift, you get it 25% quicker, and I think it's made a difference. The gearbox is superb. Whenever you ask for the gear, it's there, going up or down. And the pedals, I mean, the pedals are phenomenal. They feel so good under your hand.
In order to improve the Artura's sound, an optional sports exhaust featuring a symposer that channels natural, not reproduced sound into the cabin is available, but even the standard system has been revised and now features an upward conical shape to the tailpipes in order to improve the engine note at mid and high revs.
It's just a bit of a shame that when you end up crescendoing to the 8,000-ish RPM red line, it could do with a little bit more fizz, I think, a bit more excitement. 8,000 RPM is brilliant. I'm really pleased it revs there, but I'm looking for a little bit more at the top end, just to really build up that event and tell you that you're at high revs in a supercar.
Of course, it's not easy to get this from a hybrid. Ferrari hasn't quite nailed it in the 296, and there's still work to be done with the McLaren. But again, the 2025 model year Artura is a step forwards. And speaking of the 296, actually, it's fair to say that it's still got the everyday excitement factor over the McLaren. At road speeds, it feels more alive and positive, whereas the Artura needs higher speeds to really bring out the best in it.
For me, there is a couple of usability things that I want to point out. So I can see why they've offered the blind spot monitoring, because now with these buttresses up here, you can't see anything over your shoulder. So that is essential. You need to have that. Also, I've noticed that the wind definitely bounces against this, and it is quite noisy in your ears. Yeah, it's a supercar, but it still feels a little bit noisier than you might expect. What I do like, and I think a lot of people will appreciate, is the lane departure warning. Sounds strange, but you can turn it off because it can be a little bit overactive, as can every lane departure warning system. You can turn it off with one button just down here on the dashboard, and apparently when you turn it off, it stays off. It doesn't just come back on. So that's a very good point. Gives you more control, which, let's face it, that's surely what you want.
The Artura Spider is more than a convertible version of McLaren's plug-in hybrid supercar. With the model year 2025 changes, it resembles a second chance at getting the most out of a car that so many believed had more to give. This version is better in almost every way. It's a little bit faster, it sounds noticeably better, it's more comfortable, it's way more sorted and confidence-inspiring, and during our admittedly short time with the car, it felt like it was finally the finished product. For those wondering how it compares to Ferrari's more expensive V6 plug-in hybrid, then understand that the cars remain quite different in how they deliver the supercar experience. The Ferrari flatters you, while the McLaren requires more commitment to reveal its ultimate talents, otherwise defaulting to a more pared-back, all-round character. We'll have to get them both together to make a remake of our Artura vs 296 twin test to decide the ultimate winner, but for now, it's safe to say that this is the McLaren Artura that always should have been.